My accountant called me on a Thursday morning and said, "Harv, I need you to come in today. Don't mention this to your son. What I found, you need to see it for yourself." I'd been sitting on the back porch with my second cup of coffee, watching the sun come up over the Rockies the way I had every morning for 31 years. Retired 2 years earlier from 38 years running Kellerman Supply. Industrial hardware, commercial plumbing, 7 locations across Colorado. Good company, good life. I'd built it with my hands and my name, and I was proud of it. The call came from Dwight Okafor, my accountant for 22 years. Steady man, not someone who called with drama. "What kind of thing are we talking about?" I said. "I can't say on the phone, Harv. Just come in. Morning if you can." I was there by 9. Dwight's office smelled like printer paper and old coffee. He had documents spread across his desk the way he did when something serious was happening. Organized, labeled, exactly where he needed to reach. He stood when I came in and shook my hand with both of his. That's when I knew it was bad. "Sit down," he said. "Please." I sat. 3 weeks ago, your son asked me to pull together a financial summary of your estate." He kept his voice flat, professional. "He said you'd authorized it, that you were considering restructuring the trust." My son was 42. He and his wife had moved back to Denver from Atlanta 2 years ago, not long after I retired. They'd been staying with me temporarily, his wife's word, temporarily, while they looked for a place. That was 26 months ago. My house in Cherry Hills had 5 bedrooms. Plenty of room. I hadn't said anything. "I didn't authorize that," I said. Dwight nodded slowly. "I know that now. I'm sorry, Harv. He knew your account numbers. He knew details only someone close to you would know. I should have called to confirm directly with you. That's on me. What did he do with the information?" Dwight slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. The first page was a contact form. A facility called Sunrise Pines Memory Care and Assisted Living, out in Lakewood. My son's name and email were at the top, with a date from 6 weeks prior. He'd inquired about availability and pricing. The second page was an email chain between my son and his wife. Dwight had printed it after my son had used my business email server, the one I still maintained for the company transition, to forward some documents. He hadn't realized it ran through my archive. I read the emails slowly. "Dad's not going to just hand it over. We need to move before he realizes what we're doing. Once he's at Sunrise Pines, the POA transfers automatically. Cormac said we have a 6-week window before he could legally contest. What about the Cherry Hills house? That's the whole point. It appraises at 1.4. We list it, split with your brother, and we're done. Dad won't understand what happened, and honestly by then it won't matter." I set the papers down on Dwight's desk. My hands were steady. I was surprised by that. "There's more," Dwight said. He contacted a real estate attorney, fellow named Cormac. I found the name in the emails. I ran it. Cormac Bryce Estate Law specializes in contested asset transfers. They hired an estate lawyer. Looks that way. I sat back in the chair and looked at the ceiling for a moment. 31 years in that house. My wife Elaine had picked out the kitchen tile. She'd been gone for 9 years. My son had grown up in that house. Played baseball in the backyard. I'd put up his first basketball hoop with my own 2 hands. Dad won't understand what happened, and honestly by then it won't matter. I was sharp as I'd ever been. Every doctor's appointment confirmed it. Annual physicals, clean blood work. I walked 4 miles every morning. Played cards Thursday nights with the same 4 men I'd known since 1987. There was nothing wrong with my mind, and my son knew that. He knew it, which meant this wasn't about my health at all. "Dwight," I said, "what do I do?" He leaned forward. "You call a lawyer today, not tomorrow, today. Before he realizes I've seen any of this." I called Augusto Villanueva from the parking lot. He came recommended by my business attorney, estate and elder law, 40 years in Denver. His assistant put me through in under 10 minutes. I explained what I had. "Can you be here at 2?" he said. I was there at 1:50. Augusto was a compact man, mid-60s, silver hair swept back, reading glasses on a chain around his neck. His office had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a window overlooking the 16th Street Mall. He reviewed everything I'd brought, Dwight's printouts, the email chain, the Sunrise Pines contact form, without speaking for a full 7 minutes. Then he looked up. "Your son and his wife are planning to use a durable power of attorney to transfer control of your assets under the guise of cognitive decline," he said. "The POA would need to be triggered by a physician's determination. They'd need a doctor willing to certify that you're incapacitated. I'm not incapacitated. No, which is why timing matters. They want to act before you realize what's happening. He set the papers down. Here's the situation, Harv. You have time, but not unlimited time. What we do in the next 30 days determines whether you keep your assets or spend years fighting to get them back in court. What do we do? He pulled a yellow legal pad from his drawer and uncapped his pen. First, we revoke any existing power of attorney documents immediately. Second, we establish an irrevocable trust. Third, we change account beneficiaries. He paused. We document everything you already know. The emails, Dwight's call, all of it. Dated, witnessed, notarized. And my son? Augusto looked at me steadily. He's still living in your house? He and his wife? Yes. Is there a lease agreement? No. Then under Colorado law, you have the right to ask them to leave with appropriate written notice. Typically 30 days. Without a lease, they have very limited legal standing. I drove home that evening through downtown Denver, the light going gold and flat across the city. I'd made 4 stops that afternoon. Augusto's office, the bank to initiate beneficiary changes, a notary public, and a copy shop to make duplicates of everything. My son's car was in my driveway when I got home. His wife's SUV was parked on the street. I went in through the garage. They were in my kitchen. She was on the phone, leaning against my counter. He was at my kitchen table eating a sandwich he'd made from my groceries, scrolling his phone. Hey, Dad. He didn't look up. There's leftover chili if you're hungry. We finished most of it. I set my keys on the hook by the door. Thanks, I said. You were out late. Now he looked up. Something careful moved through his eyes. Everything okay? Just errands. I went to my office and closed the door. I sat at my desk for a long time. The house was quiet except for the television his wife had turned on in the living room. My television, my living room. Outside my window, the backyard where I'd put up his basketball hoop stretched out gray in the fading light. The hoop was still there, rusting now. Dad won't understand what happened. I opened my laptop and pulled up the scanned copies Augusto's paralegal had already sent over. The revocation of the existing power of attorney, the initial trust framework, everything I'd sign in full at 9 the next morning. Then I opened my journal, paper, the old kind, leather-bound, and started writing. The date. What Dwight had told me. What the emails said. What Augusto advised. I wrote it in my own hand because I'd been a meticulous record keeper for 4 decades, and that habit had never failed me. I wrote for 2 hours. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. I was at Augusto's office by 8:50 the next morning. We worked through the signing for an hour and a half. Every page, every transfer, every beneficiary update. By 10:30, the irrevocable trust existed. My house, my investment accounts, my business interests, everything I had built was protected. They can challenge it, Augusto told me as I stood to leave. But with your current medical records, your documented competence, and the evidence of their intent, any challenge would fail. You have a fortress here, Harv. I shook his hand. What about the house? I'll have the notice drafted by Friday. I spent the next 3 days doing what I always did. Morning walks, cards on Thursday, breakfast with my neighbor Floyd, who I'd known since our kids were in Little League. My son and his wife moved through my house like they always had, comfortable, entitled, unaware. She called her mother every evening on speaker. He watched sports on my television until midnight and left the glasses on the coffee table. Twice I came downstairs in the morning to find dishes in the sink they hadn't bothered to rinse. On Friday, the envelope arrived from Augusto's office. Thick paper, official seal. I held it on my desk for most of the afternoon. Then I walked into the living room. My son was on the couch. His wife was beside him. Some home renovation show on the TV. I set the envelopes on the coffee table between them. He picked his up, turned it over. What's this? Official notice. You have 30 days to find other housing. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. Then his wife's face went white. He looked up at me. Dad, what? This is a joke. It's not. You're kicking us out? We're family. He stood up. Not angry yet, but moving toward it. We moved back here for you. We gave up our lives in Atlanta to be close to you. You moved back here 26 months ago, temporarily. Your word, that's not. Things changed. You know that. His wife had opened her envelope. She was reading it. Her hands weren't steady. Dad, he moved toward me. Listen to me, we can talk about this. Whatever's going on, we can figure it out. You don't need to bring lawyers into this. I already did. The silence again. This one longer. What does that mean? It means what I said. 30 days. I'd suggest starting to look this weekend. The rental market in Denver is competitive right now. I walked back to my office and closed the door. Behind me, his voice rose immediately. Her voice too, lower, urgent. Then his footsteps on the hardwood, pacing. Then the sound of them moving to the back bedroom, talking behind a closed door. I sat at my desk and wrote in my journal. The time, their reactions, his exact words. Everything Augusto might need if it reached a court. The next morning he knocked on my office door. He came in without waiting for an answer. He never knocked, just walked in, the way he always had. I need to know what happened, he said. He sat down across from me without being asked. Someone said something to you. You weren't like this 3 days ago. I'm exactly the same as I've always been. No, you're not. Dad, are you okay? I mean that sincerely. Are you feeling okay? Because this behavior, I'm fine. I met his eyes. I'm better than I've been in a long time, actually. He studied me. Something moved behind his expression that I hadn't seen there in years. Not worry, calculation. We just need a little more time, he said. His voice shifted into the tone he'd used since childhood, when he wanted something. Gentle, reasonable. Just the two of us. 6 months, maybe 8. We're close to being ready. 30 days, I said. He stood up sharply. This is insane. You're going to sit there and tell me 30 days? After everything we've done? What have you done? He stared at me, opened his mouth, closed it again. Go talk to your wife, I said. Start making calls. He left. The door didn't slam, which surprised me. That was worse, somehow. The controlled exit. That afternoon, my daughter-in-law knocked. She sat in the chair across from my desk and folded her hands in her lap and looked at me with an expression I recognized immediately. She'd practiced it. I want you to know, she said, that whatever you've heard, however this got started, I love you. We love you. This family matters to me more than any house or any money. I waited. I think we got off track, she said. Living together is hard. I know we haven't always been considerate. I take responsibility for that. She paused. But throwing us out, that's not you. That's not the man I've known for 15 years. What do you think you know about me? I said it quietly. She blinked. I'm just saying, I know about the emails. The color left her face completely. I know about Sunrise Pines. I know about Cormac Bryce. I know about the conversation you had with my son about the Cherry Hills house, and what it appraises at, and what the plan was once I was. I paused, no longer in a position to understand what was happening. She didn't speak. 29 days, I said. Good luck with the search. She stood slowly. She left without another word. No tears. I respected that, in a bleak kind of way. She'd run out of material. That evening they were quiet. I could hear them talking in the guest room until past midnight. Low, urgent voices, long pauses. Planning. Adapting. They were capable people. They'd adapt. The weeks moved steadily. My son tried 3 more times. Once with logic. They had financial commitments, contracts, obligations. Once with guilt. His mother would be devastated if she were alive. I let that one sit in the air between us for a moment before I answered. Don't do that, I said. Don't use her. He looked away. The 3rd time he brought a letter, typed, formal, a proposal. They would pay rent $800 a month and sign a 1-year lease, and in exchange I would cancel the eviction notice. $800 for Cherry Hills. I'd have laughed if it hadn't been so exhausting. I handed the letter back without speaking. His wife's parents called me on a Tuesday. Her father, a man I'd met 4 times, telling me I was breaking up the family, that I was acting erratically, that he was concerned about my mental state. I listened until he finished. I appreciate the call, I said. Your daughter and my son have 30 days from notice. That clock is still running. This is not the behavior of a... Goodbye, I said and hung up. I documented that too. The morning of day 30, I called Augusto. He arranged everything. Legal, official, a sheriff's deputy named Marcus Aiken who met us at the house at 10 a.m. I was already home when they arrived. My son's car was in the driveway. I knocked on my own front door. My son answered. He looked at the deputy, at Augusto, at me. His face cycled through several expressions quickly. Deputy Aiken was professional and direct. Sir, the 30-day notice period has elapsed. This is now an enforcement of a legal eviction order. You and your wife need to collect your personal belongings. You have 2 hours. You brought the police to my own father's house. My son looked at me. His voice broke slightly on the last word. I don't know if it was real or not. I'd stopped being able to tell. "It's my house," I said. What followed was loud and chaotic and sad. His wife cried. Real tears this time, I thought. They'd packed some things already, I could tell. Not everything, not enough. They hauled bags and boxes through the front door and loaded them into the SUV. Deputy Aiken watched from the hallway. Augusto stood near the door and checked his watch. My son stopped in front of me on one of his trips through. He held a box of kitchen things, coffee mugs she'd brought from Atlanta. "I hope it was worth it," he said. "Being alone." "I'm not alone," I said. "I just don't have uninvited guests anymore." He went outside. When the last bag was in the car, my daughter-in-law looked at me from the driveway. Nothing performative now. Just tired like she hadn't slept in a week. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what it's worth." I didn't answer, not because I was cruel, but because I didn't know yet if I believed her, and I'd stopped saying things I didn't mean. They drove away. Deputy Aiken handed me paperwork. Augusto shook my hand. I stood in the doorway for a while after they left. The house behind me was quiet in a way it hadn't been in over 2 years. Good quiet. Mine. It's been 5 weeks now. I'm sitting on the back porch with my coffee. 58 degrees at 7:30 in the morning. The Rockies are clear today. No haze, no clouds. Just that specific blue you only get in Colorado when the air is thin and clean and cold at the edges. My son called twice in the first week. I let both go to voicemail. I listened to the messages, which was more than I'd promised myself I'd do. The first one was angry. The second was something closer to sad. I haven't called back. I don't know yet if I will. That's not avoidance. It's honesty. I'm not ready to have a conversation where I know I'll hear things designed to make me doubt myself, and I'm not willing to do that to myself anymore. My daughter-in-law sent a card. Handwritten. Said she was sorry again, that she knew it wasn't enough, that she understood if I never spoke to them again. I read it twice and put it in the drawer with the legal documents. I don't know what to do with it yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Time will tell. Dwight came by last Saturday morning with his wife Renata. They stayed for 2 hours. We sat on this same porch and drank coffee and talked about nothing important, the Rockies season, a restaurant downtown that had finally reopened, his son's new job in Portland, normal things. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have a conversation that had no agenda underneath it. "You doing okay?" he asked before they left. "Yeah," I said. "I am." Augusto sent the final trust confirmation last week. Everything filed, everything protected. The letter said the same thing he'd told me in his office. "You maintain full control during your lifetime. This is as protected as assets can be." I read it, filed it, and made myself a real breakfast for the first time in months. Floyd and I played cards Thursday. Same 4 men, same table at the same diner we've been meeting at since 1987. Floyd won, which he does most weeks, and he made sure we all knew it in detail. Driving home, I realized I'd laughed more in those 2 hours than I had in the past 6 months. I signed up for a woodworking class at the recreation center on Tuesday mornings. I've been meaning to for years. My father built furniture, a credenza, 2 rocking chairs, a dining table we ate every holiday meal on until it finally gave out, and I always thought someday I'd learn. There's a Thursday evening class too, more advanced. The instructor told me I could try both. I've been thinking about my son, not with anger, not the way I was in those first weeks when the hurt sat right up against everything and I couldn't get distance from it. I think about how he got here, how we both did. I wasn't a perfect father. I worked too much, missed things I shouldn't have missed, thought providing meant the same thing as being present. I know that, but I also know that what he planned was not something I caused. You don't learn to see your father as a transaction to be completed from anything I did. That came from somewhere else, from choices he made, from the person he chose to become. I don't say that to excuse myself. I say it because it's true, and I'm old enough to know the difference. The thing nobody tells you about setting boundaries with your own children is that it doesn't feel like power. It doesn't feel victorious. It just feels necessary. The way stopping a bleeding wound is necessary, not triumphant, just essential. You do it because the alternative is worse. I still don't know if my son and I will ever find our way back to something. Probably not the same thing we had. That's gone. But maybe something different, something honest, without the performance, without him calculating what he can get and me not seeing it. Maybe. I'm not optimistic. But I'm not closed either. I've learned not to make permanent decisions about that kind of thing when the wound is still fresh. What I do know is this: I wake up every morning in my own house. I drink coffee on this porch. I see those mountains. I go to sleep in the bed I've slept in for 31 years, in a room I chose, in a life I built. Nobody is planning what comes next for me. Nobody is looking at what I have and calculating their share. Nobody is on the phone with a memory care facility in Lakewood asking about availability. I am 67 years old, and I am fine, better than fine. I am exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I want to do, on my own terms, for the first time in longer than I can honestly say. The woodworking class starts Tuesday. I've been thinking about making a rocking chair.